tally up more votes than Michael D. Higgins did in 2018. He got a little over 800,000. She's on course to eclipse that, but it is, of course, on a lower turnout. And one of the big stories of this election is the spoiled votes at the moment. If it reaches 10%, which it should do at least, 140,000 people will have spoiled their vote, and it could go as high as 200,000 people across the country. In some of the Dublin constituencies, we're seeing 16, 17, 18% of people spoiling their vote. A number so high that in some constituencies there are more spoiled votes than there are for Heather Humphreys and Jim Gavin combined.
Well, there has been a high volume of spoiled votes in Donegal. Statements written on ballot papers include "She was only 10 years old," "Not my president," "Justice for Harvey," "None of the above," and "SpongeBob #1. Another voter put an X through the entire ballot paper, drawing a separate box with Aisling Murphy's name, and others submitting blank ballot papers. Meanwhile, figures suggest the average voter turnout for Donegal averaged at around 40% yesterday as the counting of votes continue in Letterkenny. Donegal town recorded the highest turnout with 42.6%, whilst Ronolar saw 36.3% of the LEA vote. Figures recorded before 9 o'clock also showed the voter turnout was the highest in Rossnarla with 41%, Ballyshannon with 36% and Letterkenny with 35%, with turnout being as low as 27% in Bundoran. The national average turnout was 43.9%. Inishowen Municipal District has taken delivery of a small street sweeper after no tenders were received for a street cleaning contract earlier in the year. The Billy Goat, to be based in Buncrana, will also be used by the local Tidy Towns Committee, which has once again taken the county title in the national competition. This week, officials told Councillor Joy Beard that the efficacy of the machine will be assessed on an ongoing basis, and after a demonstration yesterday, which was also attended by Councillors Finn Bradley and Jack Murray, Councillor Beard says she's in no doubt that this will have a very significant impact.
The town is looking fabulous at the minute, and this is an extra addition that will help with those smaller pieces of debris that's on the road and on the footpath, and I see it as a good thing, but it does have to be reviewed. This is a new piece of equipment for us, and it's important we see how we get on with it. I think looking at it now, it's going to be very, very good for the town, and it'll be interesting now over the next few months to see what impact it's going to make, but I've no doubt the Tidy Towns team are delighted to get use of it as well.
A man has been arrested in relation to the alleged assault on election canvassers in Dublin yesterday. 2 women were reportedly assaulted on North Strand Road. Sinn Féin leader Mary Lou MacDonald was among the group at the time. The man, aged in his 30s, has been taken to a Garda station in the capital, where he can be held for up to 24 hours. An €8.6 million project has been launched to tackle obesity in Northern Ireland and the border counties. 9,000 people will be supported to tackle obesity by empowering them to understand and change behaviours, primarily through improving diet and increasing physical activity. The Caught Healthier Futures project is supported by the Peace Plus programme. Donal Kavanagh has more.
The Healthier Futures project has 2 distinct target groups. In Northern Ireland, the project will support adults and families, while in the Republic, the focus will be on children. The project will be delivered in the border counties of Donegal, Sligo, Leitrim, Cavan, Monaghan, Louth, Derry, Tyrone, Fermanagh, Armagh and Down. Figures from the 2023-24 Health Survey in Northern Ireland indicate that around 2/3 of adults were either overweight or obese, similar to previous years. Meanwhile, the Republic has one of the highest levels of obesity in Europe, with 60% of adults and over 20% of children and young people overweight or obese, according to the HSE. More details on the project available on our website, highlandradio.com.
And now for the weather. Patchy cloud will build by afternoon with more widespread showers spreading from the northwest. High temperatures of 9 to 11 degrees. That's all from the newsroom for now. We will be back with the headlines at 1 o'clock.
Broadcasting throughout the Northwest and across the world online. This is Highland Radio. Togu do Station, Highland Radio.
This is an empty glass. And this is a Bulmer 00. Ice cold, crisp, appley, no alcohol refreshment. Sounds delicious. Bulmer 00. Drink responsibly. Visit drinkaware.ie.
OK, you are very welcome along to a very special show. It's Greg Hughes here. We're broadcasting live from the Ora Leisure Centre as counting continues to elect the 10th president of this country, and we've kind of joined the party as the ref is about to step in and call the whole thing off, because as we know and as we perhaps suspected, right across the country, Heather Humphreys, Catherine Connolly is running away with it, and she's polling extremely high here in Donegal as well. Over the next hour or so, we're definitely on air for an hour. We'll continue exclusively on our socials afterwards. We'll be keeping you up to date with what's been happening so far, and we have the views of John McAteer, editor of the Tyrconnell Tribune, Paddy Rooney, our political analyst, and Dr. Joe Kelly, an analyst himself but also a historian. So 3 very interesting voices with lots to say. We can't speculate as to how this is going to go. We know the towel has effectively been thrown in, but we can look at the spoiled votes. And I'll be honest with you, in the lead up to this election, with a couple of comments I made on air referencing spoiled votes and their impact, perhaps didn't really get the full consequence of it, and I'm starting to see that now, in that we could find a situation, certainly in swathes of the country, where the spoiled vote polls higher than Heather Humphreys, and yes, that does send a very strong message. Our journalist Michaela Clark is with us. Hi, Michaela.
Hi, Greg.
How are you getting on? Very good. Right, okay, so you've been here now for quite some time. You have the overall figure. Do you want me to give that?
Yeah,
but you're also going to dig into it a little bit. So how have the people of Donegal voted?
So obviously, as you were saying there, Catherine Connolly has secured a landslide here in Donegal. The voter turnout was 35%, according to the tallies that we have. In relation to the figures, there's still some boxes that need to be opened. The postal votes still need to be tallied, but Catherine Connolly has secured 75% of the vote here in Donegal. Jim Gavin 4% and Heather Humphreys 20%. And you mentioned the spoiled votes there. There's an estimated 5,800 here in Donegal, and just going round earlier this morning, seeing the ballot papers, there was so many different things. We had Maria Steen number 1, we had justice for Aisling Murphy, we had justice for Harvey Morrison Sherritt, who had to wait years for spinal surgery. Other ones were just completely blank, so obviously people weren't going to spoil it, weren't going to vote either. A lot of X's right through the ballot paper, a lot of X's through each of their names, and people writing not our president. Did I mention as well Aisling Murphy?
Yeah, so close on 6,000 Donegal people, and this doesn't include all of Donegal, because some of the south of the counties in Sligo, Leitrim, of course, they felt, right, this is a legitimate way that we can sort of exercise our democratic right.
Yeah, and a lot of people just sending a message through their ballot paper, but it was interesting. You could see some government votes, so Heather Humphreys would have got 1, Jim Gavin would have got 2, so there are still people voting for the government, but obviously Catherine Connolly's run away with it, and there was a lot just voting number 1 Catherine. That was it. They weren't using their 1, 2 and 3s.
And in other parts of the country, and indeed in the backyard of some leading lights in government, we have seen the spoiled votes in excess of Heather Humphreys, but at 20%, and given the fact that she wasn't up here an awful lot, that vote has kind of held up. We'll get more from the lads in relation to that, but it is higher than perhaps I was anticipating.
I broke down just other figures I had from the local electoral areas individually, and Heather Humphreys for the Buncrana local electoral area, she had 14%, where the spoiled votes were 13%, so it's very close. That it's kind of similar right across. In the Letterkenny local electoral area, I don't have all the tallies for all the boxes there yet, but Heather Humphreys was 19, spoiled votes was 12%. Same in the Milford local electoral area, they're very, very close. Even then, whenever we look at the Donegal local electoral area, Heather Humphreys was a bit higher there. Now that's only 80% of the tallies from the local electoral area in Donegal, but Heather Humphreys was 21% there. Spoiled votes was 10%, so she is close. Now we still have obviously so many more votes to tally in relation to the Donegal LEA, the Glenties and the Lifford Stranorlar as well, but it is very close, the spoiled votes and Heather Humphreys votes.
And if you take out the spoiled votes, I think Catherine Connolly's vote exceeds 80% of the valid votes. So
like all the local electoral areas. Buncrana, she's on 69%, Carndonagh 70%, Letterkenny 63%, Milford 65%, Donegal 64, Glenties is only 44% of the votes that I have tallies for there, 71%, and Lifford Stranorlar, very little tallies for that, but she's on 10%, and Heather Humphreys on 32%, but that's we still have a long way to go
Yeah.
there.
So
and we have postal votes
for
as
those
well.
just switching on the radio or for those just joining our stream, and don't forget you can watch not just this hour but an hour beyond exclusively online. 75% of the first preference votes, or is that the correct terminology? Still it is, isn't it? 75% Catherine Connolly is on, I should put it like that. Jim Gavin on 4%. Heather Humphreys on 20%, so 85 and 4, 89. So that puts the spoil vote at around about 11% here in the county, doesn't it? Okay.
Quite high.
Now, just in terms, before I bring our panellists in, Michaela, just in terms of how things are progressing, when
we kind of thought it would have been done the first tally by 12, but they're thinking maybe another hour from now, and then a declaration maybe possibly at 4.
Okay.
But then obviously it goes to
national then at that point. Okay, listen, thank you so very much for your contribution so far, and of course we'll be hearing more from Michaela. Gentlemen, bring the microphones close to your mouths because we want to hear every dulcet tone. Dr. Joe Kelly, to you first. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to have you with us. I'll look at the headphones in a moment. How are you getting on, Paddy Rooney?
I'm getting on very well. Thank you. How are you?
Is there anything coming through there now? 1, 2?
No,
Nothing.
nothing.
Right. I'll go back to that in a moment. John McAteer.
Hello.
How art thou? Good to have you with us. How are you keeping?
I'm keeping fine and well.
Okay.
No big complaints.
I'll ask you just to direct that microphone to your face a little. Paddy Rooney, I'll start with you. Heather Humphreys hasn't featured anywhere near that Fine Gael would like. Catherine Connolly has just completely run away from this, both locally and nationally. What happened?
I think it's probably very early to say, Greg, what's happened at this stage, and I suppose some journalists through the fullness of time is going to write a book to say what happened, and it'll probably be out before Christmas if there's time. I suppose there's a couple of things here. One is the last time I was on your programme and you asked me about who was going to win this election, and I sort of hesitantly or reluctantly said that Heather Humphreys would have done it if 3 things had come to pass. One is if the Left Alliance had held up, which it looks like that it has. Secondly, if Fianna Fail supporters stayed at home. There's been a very, very low turnout, so you may make the case that they have. And the third thing is that she wouldn't self-destruct, say something that would put the electorate offside. And despite all the stuff that was thrown at her, in relation to her position about the banks in the court and the banks in Dáil Éireann, and about all the objections she made to various things coming before Galway County Council, the more that was thrown at her, the more she rose in the polls, and it's very hard to explain actually why that happened.
Well, I'll tell you a reason why I believe it happened is because a lot of the issues that the government tried to take her down on, they agreed with her position on them. Really, they weren't punches being landed at all. People understand that if you work in the legal field, you don't pick and choose who you represent, but people are clever, and I think that's why it didn't work, because they didn't really have too much controversial on her. A lot of people look on with how Germany is spending, and they look at the European army potentially, and they go, you know what, I actually agree with Catherine Connolly. That is not a punch.
Yeah, and I was listening when I was on my way in here this morning to Helen McEntee, the government minister, and she was asked about the let's call it, the attack approach that Fine Gael had in the latter stages of the campaign, particularly about Catherine Connolly's representation in the courts and so on and so forth. And she got very defensive and very aggressive in trying to answer that and saying that it was the right thing to do. Some of this, of course, has got to do with, I have to say, the performance of Heather Humphreys, because, when it all boils down, I don't think she was the right candidate. I read during the week there that she was a government minister for 9 years, and not one occasion had she been on the Virgin Media Tonight show to defend her ministry or the performance of the government. And not once in all of that time had she been on prime time. And somebody within the Fine Gael organisation thought it was a very good idea to pit her against a professional barrister and a clinical psychologist, knowing full well that there was going to be a lot of debates on the TV and also on the radio. That was heading up for a fall anyway. Now, Catherine Connolly was probably going to win anyway, but there was a lot of other things as well, like at the very, very outset when Heather Humphreys was asked about her husband's membership of the Orange Order, and she tripped and stumbled over that. And
Can I
more or
ask
less
a
saying,
question? But why is that so controversial? Because
the
our
fact is
flag
that
represents quite a broad community here. I've interviewed members of the Orange Order on numerous occasions. It's not controversial, right? So why is sort of highlighting her association or husband's association with the Orange Order a bad thing?
There was no harm in that at all, but she and the Fine Gael organisation seem to want to press that down into some kind of an embarrassment. This should have been a positive thing for her. There's 1 million people that live on this island that regard themselves as Unionist, Loyalist, British, and this should have been a positive thing for her, that she had the ability to overreach into the hearts and minds of a lot of people of the Order. But it's actually Fine Gael played that down, and they seemed to, and herself, she seemed to be semi-embarrassed about it.
Yeah, all right. John McAteer, I don't think anything that's happened over the last couple of weeks is going to have come as any surprise to you.
Absolutely not. The reality is that the vote in Donegal is down again.
35%, 37% actually it's at the moment.
What we have here is around 30%.
I have the live cross-party tallies, and it's just gone from 35 to 37%.
37 is still well off that 40%.
Yeah.
It was 43.9 the last time. Donegal was the worst performing constituency the last time as well. They were on around that 33%. So they're somewhat above that. There was no evidence yesterday, and in fact in the actual figures coming back from the polling stations, they were way off beam, 42 and 44 and 46%. We got around 60 returns last night from different areas of the county. It would seem that Catherine Connolly, the one thing that stood out, she was polling very strongly in the Gaeltacht areas, up around Kilcar and Carrick, across Fanad, Nadunov and places like that there. But what was wrong with it from day one was that it never got going. There's something about a presidential election that it's just a dog eats dog. Has always been that way ever since we had contests. And we haven't had that many contests, Joe, had we, over the many years. Is this our 6th contest altogether?
Yeah, and you have to go back to 73 before the field was as narrow as it is now. So, it's very rare to have such a narrow field. And has that kind of cocked it all up a little bit? Because I would imagine both Fianna Gael and Fianna Fail were planning that they would cross-pollinate and all that kind of stuff. Jim Gavin obviously took his white trousers and left. So it kind of skewed really whatever strategy they may not have.
See, I've written several times that the budget day would decide, and it was a bad budget for Middle Ireland. The government bought the last election on three budgets, handouts of up to €750 in energy credits. That wasn't there this time. People felt themselves more stretched for money, and they said, just to hell with this, It wasn't really about the candidates at all. It was it's a vote of no confidence in the government, full stop. And at the end of the day, it adds further to Michael Martin's problems as the leader of Fianna Fail. And for Simon Harris, it's another disaster after the general election,
Okay, well, stay where you are. That literally is just a sample of what we've got to come. And I've got so many questions to ask Joe Kelly as well, too, Dr. Joe. We have an abundance of brilliant voices here today. Thomas Pringle has been very influential, not only in Catherine Connolly's local campaign, but nationally as well. And we'll be getting his views after this short break.
Indulge yourself with friends or a loved one at the Spa at Orchids at the Holyrood Hotel in Bundoran. A midweek or weekend spa break is the perfect way to escape from life for a while. Take a leisurely walk along the Atlantic coast. Enjoy a dip in our private pool, a plunge in our Canadian hot tub, and treatments of your choice before dining in one of the Holyrood Hotel's acclaimed restaurants. The Spa at Orchids. Book now at holyroodhotel.com.
Keep out the cold, cold, cold! And ring Fleming for their full range of garage doors, agri doors, insulated doors, milking parlour doors. Fleming, 91 48 234.
Celebrate the season of giving and fill your home with beautiful Christmas decorations from Yisk to start spreading the Christmas spirit at home. Yisk.
Scandinavian sleeping and living.
Sorting out this washing zero crack.
Fancy a Mawam?
So chewy.
Yeah, the chew lasts longer than a long line of line dancers locking their long limbs.
It lasts longer than the longest line of long johns drying on a line.
Longer than a lifelong longing to be a legendary long jumper with a record for the world's longest long jump.
Longer than a long-haired longboat captain's longing for a cup of oolong after a year-long trip to a long-lost lagoon.
Easy for you to say.
It isn't.
With Mawam's longer-lasting chew, it's easy to choose fun. Chew Mawam.
Atlantic Technological University will hold 2 open days on the Letterkenny campus on Thursday the 6th and Saturday the 8th of November from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. Enjoy a warm welcome from lecturers, support staff and students and tour the expanding campus to experience the vibrant atmosphere that makes ATU unique. Explore the incredible facilities and wide range of programmes on offer, including 2 brand new degrees in physiotherapy and veterinary medicine and surgery. Discover the fantastic career opportunities, student supports and student life that ATU can offer you. Find out more at atu.ie/open days. ATU, your future is here.
You're very welcome back to a very special show live here from the Ora Leisure Centre in Letterkenny as the counting of votes in the presidential election continues. Dr. Joe Kelly's going to be joining us very shortly, but a quick word with former Deputy Thomas Pringle, as I said before the break, instrumental in Catherine Connolly's campaign locally and influential, of course, nationally. Thomas, obviously we're always very cautious, it's not over till it's over, but I think, such is the scale of the vote for Catherine Connolly that it's only really procedural now at this stage. Why did it go so right?
Well, it went right because I think, firstly, Catherine is a fantastic candidate, and she very, very much was an independent candidate, but very much set out her stall and answered questions fully and that as well, and I think that's very important and people engage with that. And I think Catherine doesn't specialise in politician speak, which basically is saying nothing for as long as possible, and and people really respected that, and I think that was huge. And also as well then what's vitally important is the way that the left wing parties amalgamated and came together and worked together in this campaign. Right across Donegal we had Sinn Féin, the Redress Group, Independents, all working together to make sure that the word would be got out there, and it paid off.
Do you think this is almost a bit of a wake-up call after the last general election or previous general elections, that if really there is if really either Fianna Fail or Fine Gael are to be out of power, at a general election it's going to require the same level of cooperation?
Well, I think this campaign has shown that works. And we're heading into a very strong period now where history will be made in this country, where for the first time ever Fianna Fail and Fine Gael will be out of power, and this election has shown how that can be achieved, and I think that's huge, and that's something that everybody can work towards and make sure that it happens at the next general election. A lot has been said over the last while about the presidential elections don't mean much in terms of the overall scheme of things, but if you look at over the last number of years how the presidential elections have influenced things, have changed. And so I think this presidential election is going to be very significant. We'll have the highest winning margin ever in the history of the state, and we'll also see a huge change at the next general election.
Okay. What do you, and last question, what do you make of the 11-ish% spoiled vote here in Donegal?
It's quite high, and a lot of it was Maria Steen and stuff like that there as well, and it's probably the satisfaction amongst the people with right tendencies right across the county. So in a general election that figure would be taken up by some of the candidates, so it would be up here.
But the fact that people felt motivated enough, they felt there wasn't a candidate for them, but did come out 6,000 plus according to the tallies so far. I mean, it's significant. It can't be ignored if we really truly believe in democracy.
Oh yeah, it can't be ignored, but that doesn't mean that you pander to their needs and pander to their policies and stuff like that there. Yeah. What it means is that their policies obviously don't recognise or aren't significant. I mean, obviously they've got a big turnout in the spoiled votes here, but it's not significant in the overall scheme of things. And the way to actually defeat the far right and defeat those far right votes and far right votes is actually by putting up a proper candidate who actually will stand up for what it really means for people, and that's the way to do it.
Okay, we'll tease that out a little bit more in your absence. I presume you'll be making your way to the central.
Yeah, I'm heading to Dublin now in the next couple of minutes.
All right, we'll have a safe journey on. Right, you're tuned to a special show here from the Ora Leisure Centre. It is a done deal, effectively. The final whistle is blown, but the players are still running around around kicking the ball. Here in Donegal, Catherine Connolly, 75% of the vote. Jim Gavin, 4%. Heather Humphreys, 20%. These are live figures. The turnout around about 37%, according to the tallies, and that's with a lot of the tallying having been done. Dr. Joe, I feel so bad. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us here. Good afternoon, I should say, in fact. Okay, where do you want to start with? Do you want to start with, I saw you shaking your head, I think, when Thomas Pringle talked of the 6,000 people who spoiled the vote as the far right and that we can't sort of banny to them or what have you. I don't see those 6,000 people. I see that a lot of those 6,000 people are people in my life who didn't feel they had someone to vote for.
Look, first of all, I must congratulate Thomas on the election, it looks like, of Catherine Connolly, because I know just politically they would have been friends over the years in the Dáil, and in fact she launched Michael Collum Gillespie's election in northwest Donegal for the county council. So the two of them obviously are going to be delighted with what the result is today. So just to acknowledge that in fairness. But with regards to the thing, all politics is local, Greg, and the frightening thing that just roars at me from the pages of the tally, there's been over 6,000 spoiled votes in Donegal. That is a quota, or not a quota, but a significant vote that will elect a TD the next time in Donegal. And to say that that's far right, or to say that's not important, a vote, that vote will be very, very important come the next Dáil election in this county. The people, those 6,000 people, didn't choose to vote right or left. They had a choice. And they decided not to vote for Fine Gael, not to vote for Fianna Fail, or not to vote for the offering of the left. So the question is, where are those 6,000 people going?
Because if the turnout was lower, say those 6,000 people stayed at home, we'd be critical, saying, well, this is what you didn't vote for. So really the only way they could exercise democracies, as they see it, was actually to come out in big numbers.
And that 6% is only on a 35% turnout.
Yeah, that's
so
6,000 on
yeah,
a
6,000, sorry, 6,000. How many more would be discontent and didn't go out? And maybe the thing that I really read from this here is, and John mentioned it slightly there about the budget and the giveaway budget, it hasn't come home to roost to the ordinary working person, man and woman, yet. But we're 2% less well off in our tax income this year. We will be down 2%. In an Ireland that is predicted by the IMF this year to be the highest, most advanced economy in the world.
See,
we will make the point. We are going to make about 9.7% growth. On the workers of this country, we're going to make a profit, so to speak, of 10%. And for the workers of Ireland, you're being told this profit of 10%, your reward is that you're going to get a 2% reduction in your wage. Now that angers people, and wait till that anger filters through.
Yeah, but you see, that's what I was going to say, Paddy. I'm not disagreeing with Joe whatsoever, but I actually think the activity, that what occurred at the City West would impact this election more than what happened on Budget Day. Almost.
Yeah, because many of the political commentators in the media over the last couple of weeks have been talking about the very forensic way that the Irish electorate behave, that up to now at the very least, they use their value system and they're looking for a candidate who's got a vision for Ireland and can articulate that vision. In a Dáil election, then, the thing that's uppermost to them is their wallet, which means that I know John has made the point about the budget and so on and so forth, but it's hard to know. We'll only know through the fullness of time. Was that the big reason for it? And in local elections, then, the retention of the parish pump is the stuff that sort of exercises the people. So they do not behave in the same way in a local, a national and a presidential election. Some of this, I suspect, had got to do with the fact, and Alison O'Connor said it on the radio this morning, that one of the things that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are guilty of here is that they didn't take Catherine Connolly's campaign seriously. They regarded her as some kind of a Jeremy Corbyn type figure that was there to sort of kick the system and cause some controversy.
I think if they did take it seriously, there seems to be a lack of understanding of what's important to people, and also where the dial is on many issues. In terms of, to talk about, say you could choose some of the language sounding European army-ish, right? and that's what we need to do, and we need to be investing in drones. That's not what people want. People are very afraid of us losing our neutrality and becoming part of some sort of a European political collective. But I didn't think Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael even got that. Because they were trying to take her down with this stuff.
They did, and Joe and John are saying the same thing in different ways. I mean, the journalist Owen Harris used to talk about official Ireland. And what official Ireland looks like in this case was that when the polls were showing that Heather Humphreys was suffering very badly, Fine Gael got official Ireland here to come onto the pitch to advocate on behalf. And we're talking about current and former Fianna Fáil ministers. We're talking about former presidents of the IFA. We're talking about all the broadsheets media that, the Independent and the Irish Mail in particular were very sore on Catherine Connolly, and many, many more. But the more they did that, the more the Irish electorate railed against it, and they, official Ireland, in their view, is what Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael represents, and they weren't going to have it anymore. And that's how it manifested.
It kind of feels a little bit, John, like when Dublin won 5 or 6 in a row, and you kind of got the feeling when they went out the next year that they were still brilliant, but they kind of had done it, you know what I mean? And I just wonder, are we at the beginning now of a bit of a swing,
Good comparison that there. There is this tedium factor. So what? Dublin done 5 in a row. People had enough of that. The same as it is with this government. You have, since 2011, you have the same two parties dominating politics, dominating the government. People are getting very tedious of that. People are switched off. The fact that we're going to have less than a 40% vote says an awful lot. How many people did you see out canvassing? Was there any evidence of a campaign in Donegal whatsoever?
Well, we tried to get Heather Humphreys on the show on numerous occasions, and she was not available by any means. It didn't have to be in studio at all. No.
See, the problem is that PR teams were making the decisions. Just listen to Simon Harris's strip of 300 words in 60 seconds yesterday morning. Nobody knew what that was about. It was a bit like Latin. This is all a PR gimmick that they hope will impress people. It's been the second disastrous election for Simon Harris, the general election last November.
The last tallies I saw, spoiled votes in his electoral area were above Heather Humphreys. Now, that was some time ago.
Yeah, like we're at a point, the general public now are feeling a pinch like they didn't do before, because at all times the government was there to lend a hand. Child welfare benefits, all the energy credits and all that kind of thing. We had got into this cosy position that we began to believe that they were there almost as of a right, and all of a sudden this budget came along, and I can't overemphasise this very much. It didn't deliver. It just simply didn't deliver. I mean, you give an old age pensioner who's stuck for money at £10 a week, it's about half the price of a bag of coal, or a third in some instances. So you can't have a coal man coming with a third of a bag extra of coal to you. That was the cynicism that was out there that the public actually saw through. And I always believed that this was going to be a vote of confidence or not in the government, and that's how it has panned out.
Okay. You're tuned to a special show here live from the Aura. We're on the radio, of course. If you're listening on the radio, we're on the radio until 1 o'clock. And we've got an awful lot to get through. And we're going to continue streaming exclusively live on our social media beyond that. So not all day, don't worry, lads. So you can check out us on the... if you're at home, by the way, and maybe normally you're not during the week, you can open up the YouTube app on your smart TV or your Fire Stick and watch us on YouTube, Highland Radio Ireland. We're on the X platform and across Facebook as well. Stay with us on Radio Land, as I say, but we'll be online only on our socials after 12. We've an awful lot to tease out. What about the 50%, 49% of people that actually didn't feel there was a candidate they could even consider voting for? We'll come back with some conversation on that. But just to recap, by the way, the final tallies for Donegal are in right now. Catherine Connolly, 75.04% of the vote. Heather Humphreys, 20.06% of the vote. Jim Gavin didn't even run, but 1,786 of you decided to vote for him. 4.1% of the vote. The spoiled votes, 6,156. That equates about, they haven't given me a percentage, around about 10 or 11% of the vote, which is by no means insignificant. So we'll be teasing all that out a little bit more after these messages.
It's Sofa Time's 13th birthday, and to celebrate, save an extra £100 on all sofa orders. Choose from a wide range of 3-seater, 2-seater and corner sofas in hundreds of fabrics and leather options. But hurry, ends soon. Visit one of our 8 stores across Northern Ireland. Sofa Time, make it yours.
With the phasing out of R32 refrigerant and heat pumps, discover next generation comfort with the new award-winning Grant Airona R290 heat pump, delivering exceptional performance with quiet operation. The Grant Airona R290, heating for the future. Think heating, think Grant. Visit grant.ie.
There's a real autumn feel in Letterkenny. The perfect time to enjoy a coffee or explore your favourite shops. Discover more choice, more style and more to enjoy than ever before in Letterkenny. Brought to you by Shop LK.
Looking for a great way to reward and thank your hardworking team this Christmas? Choose a gift that gives back. With the Dunstores gift card, the more you gift, the more you save with a tax-free allowance of up to €1,500. Think instant gifting, instant delivery with an e-gift card your employees can use across all our departments, in-store and online. The Dunstores gift card. Perfect for everyone. Terms, conditions and exclusions apply.
The Home Value Big Autumn event is here, just in time for hibernation season. Find new ways of keeping your home cozy with amazing offers on products like our 6-fin oil-filled heater for just $34.95 or our halogen heater for only $24.95. Much like the autumn leaves, these offers won't last, so head to your local participating Home Value before the big autumn event ends on October 30th. Home Value, your trusted local experts.
Hello, it's Joe Duffy here. I've been fortunate through my work with the National Lottery to meet some extraordinary good causes, from boxing clubs, wildlife conservation to community cafes. Did you know National Lottery players raise over €4.5 million every week for good causes all over Ireland? And that's all thanks to you, the players. You made this possible. Support responsibly. Average figures based on 2024 financials.
Welcome back to the programme. Dr. Joe Kelly, there's a lot actually to dig in here. Like, where are the Fianna Fail voters in here? Are they in the Catherine Connolly pile? Are they in the Heather Humphreys pile? Are they the stay-at-home pile? But their vote would be much greater than the difference between the turnout this time and last time. So there's an awful lot in there, and I'm not saying necessarily we're going to get into that now, but I do want to talk about how effectively, 49% of the people in this country felt there was no one for them to vote for. That's not democracy.
It's not even that it's not democracy. Again, and I've chatted to you before in the show some weeks ago about how the councils were closed down by the fact that they didn't nominate. There was 3 nominations given out of 31 local authorities in the country, and that even Donegal County Council. And I think there's serious questions to be asked of all the councillors of Donegal. And you know how much I praise our own council, and you know how much I praise our own councillors. I have the utmost respect for every councillor in the county that works very hard at ground level. But on this occasion, they've been falling asleep at the wheel. They didn't even meet to even discuss and even go through the people that were looking for nominations. Never mind go and have a vote. And I think that was wrong and anti-democratic, and that happened across the whole county. Only 3 councils actually gave a nomination, and I think that's a very poor reflection on the role of our councillors. It says in the Constitution specifically, it's a power that councillors have, privileged position that they have.
There was
that
an
nobody
opportunity,
else has,
but it's cross-party and none, because there was an opportunity for Donegal County Council to meet. They had the 5, I think, that's required, and 1 independent pulled out. So it was arguably because of an independent that Donegal County Council didn't get to consider. Didn't get to consider backing a candidate.
Yeah, but obviously that the Fianna Fail were happy with the person that they had. Fine Gael were happy with the person they had. And in fairness, and I've heard Pearse talking about it, they didn't close down their councillors. And Fine Gael will say, well, we didn't close it down. We had our person. But they actually were told to actively vote down anybody else.
Who?
Well, anybody else that was looking for the nomination. And the reality is here, and this is where it has to come down to brass tacks. Fine Gael and Fianna Fail have themselves scored an own goal today. And what they have actually done, and they should, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing, but what they have privileged now the left, they have united the left, and they've delivered to them the presidential candidate Catherine Connolly, and that's because of their arrogance in trying to curtail the political system. They were not true. They kept to the letter of the law and the Constitution, but they didn't keep to the spirit of the law. And Senator, now they have scored an own goal today.
Yep, Senator Manus Boyle of Fine Gael is with us. Senator Boyle, I'm not sure how much you can hear of Dr. Joe Kelly where you're seated. He says you scored an own goal, and I think, and a lot of people would feel you shouldn't have blocked other people running.
Well, to be honest, we felt in Fine Gael that we had a good candidate in Heather Humphreys. And I mean, at the end of the day, you support your own. And I mean, Heather Humphreys has proven herself as last 12, 15 years in government. And she was one of the best candidates that you could get. So why would you open it up, when you felt you had the best yourself?
Well, Enda Kenny did. It's fair. It's what you do. You have a fair, open contest. You serve democracy where everyone feels they're represented, and you let the people decide.
Well, we felt in ourselves. There's a lot of difference to what Enda Kenny. The world has changed a lot since Enda Kenny was there, and we felt that we had a great candidate in Heather Humphreys, and that's why we went with Heather Humphreys.
I just want to ask a simple question of Manus. Are you telling the electorate that you don't want a number 2 or number 3 ever again when you stand for an election? Because that means that we've got our candidate and we don't want a number 2 or a number 3.
No.
Is that what you're telling the people
No,
of
it's
Donegal
not
if you
what
go
I'm
for the
doing,
next general?
no.
Well, that's what you've done in this election. You've usurped Fine Gael and Fianna Fail have usurped the democracy of this country, and you've abused the electorate of this country, and they have overwhelmingly rejected your observation of the democratic process. And come the next style election, I want you to answer the question.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a 2 or 3 if you go for an election?
Definitely.
So why could you not allow other candidates to stand and give people a choice? You have your candidate, but you still look for 2s and 3s.
But we were out there first. We had our candidate picked, and we felt she was the best person for the job, and that's why we went with her.
So why are you going to look for 2s and 3s in the next election if you
every
only
election's
think it's your candidate? What you're actually saying is you're wanting to adopt the British system of election where it's first past the post and to hell with everybody else, because that's what Simon Harris has said to the people of Ireland on this occasion, Manus. And you need to be honest about it, because maybe, I don't know you personally, but you're a decent man and you have stood for the council, and 2s and 3s were important to you. PR is an important system, Manus, in our country. It's the basis of which our democracy is based
totally
on.
agree with
And
you.
Fine Gael has closed that down. You have the first past the post attitude, which is not acceptable. And thank God today the electorate of not just this county, the electorate of Ireland, have rejected your way of doing politics.
Well, that's what politics is all about. It's democracy. And let me just say, you're on here giving me a hard time. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm in politics to help people. I'm not in politics to come on here and be talked down to. I get up every day. I go to Dublin, I go to my office in Killybegs, and it's all about helping the people of Donegal. So if I want to ask the people of Donegal for a 2 or 3, that's the people of Donegal who decide if I go to Dublin or not. It really is. I mean, this is a totally different election. Heather Humphreys was our candidate. We went out there, we fought for Heather Humphreys. It didn't go right. There's lessons to be learned. There really is. What about all the spoiled ballots?
What do you think the lessons are to learn, Manus?
Well, there's lessons out there. I mean, there's so many spoiled ballots here. There is a lot of people out there disgruntled. That voice has to be listened to.
So I suppose really, and I take your point, and you're not responsible for every decision the party makes. And the councillors, the Fine Gael councillors were part of the decision-making process, it has to be said as well. It wasn't a diktat to them. On reflection, do you think your party could have handled it differently? You went with what you decided, but you talked about lessons to be learned. Do you think is part of that lesson that maybe, an open field is better for everyone?
Well, there's lessons to be learned in every election, Jerome, and as you know. And I mean, that's what I would like to take out of it. The party will learn their lessons here, what went wrong and what went right. Now, there are not a lot of it went right, but we have to sit down and find out what went wrong and where it went wrong. And to be honest, for people saying that it's Manus Boyle didn't make the decision. There's a party there, and it was a party decision.
It's a collective decision.
It's a collective decision, and for somebody to come on and say,
praise for Fine Gael, and in fairness, Manus, in case you're thinking that I'm being very, very critical of you, Fine Gael were the only party that put a candidate forward.
and
so
we
in
stood
that
by it.
sense, one has to acknowledge that. But unfortunately, you were also the party that closed down the other system, but you were the only party that put a choice before
We
the
started it and we finished
What's
it.
your view?
Yeah, well, you know, you can't get away from the fact, I suppose, that Gareth Sheridan, one of the candidates, you know, he happened to overhear when he was approaching Carlow County Council, I think, to seek a nomination. And he already had 2 councils backing him at this stage. So all he needed was one more to get him close to the line, and he overheard one of the Fianna Fail councillors cynically saying to his colleagues, you know, we're going to put a stop to his gallop, which means that, you know, to support Joe's view here, they did actually, not Fine Gael now, but Fianna Fail, they did try and close him down, and they actually succeeded in closing him down. You asked, you know, the tenure of this, why are Fianna Fail and Fine Gael? They're missing something, they're not connected here. There's a very interesting piece in The Independent today by Sarah Carey, and she's critiquing a book by Owen O'Malley, the son of former Government Minister Des O'Malley, and it's a book that he wrote by Haughey and Fitzgerald, Haughey versus Fitzgerald. And the point that he made and she'd made in the book today, that these were 2 very intelligent guys with 2 very strong personalities who had a very big vision for the country, and they surrounded themselves with very intelligent people. You know, people like Peter Sutherland went on to become European Commissioner, and people like Martin Manser that passed away recently, both parties. Now, she said, about the problem we have now is that Micheál Martin and Simon Harris, they don't have the same strength of character or strength or will or the visions for the country, and they certainly have not surrounded themselves with intelligent people, because apparently what both of the candidates now, Manus may agree or disagree with that, she said that what both of them, the 2 guys now have surrounded themselves with journalists. That's why people don't get it. They don't have the sort of a strength of intellect that people have.
Utter disconnect.
Yeah.
And even in terms of doing journalism things, they don't do that very well. Manus, Fine Gael, polling around 20% nationally.
Yeah.
Fine Gael got 20% of the vote here in Donegal. You know, do you read anything positive into that? Does that feel like the vote held up? 20% of people vote for Fine Gael.
Like the vote held up, but Jerome, like people has to see here in Donegal, after the last general election, we were totally just wiped out of it here in Donegal. There's a rebuild on here. I'm part of the rebuild. So was Councillor Jimmy Kavanagh, Councillor Michael Boyle and Martin Harley. We're working day and night to try and rebuild Donegal here for Fine Gael. And if nothing came out of this election here, I must say, travelling around the county canvassing, we have foot soldiers back on the ground again that we hadn't got the last time. And that gives me, I am encouraged by that. If I wanted to go
building back better.
But we have our foot soldiers. But I think the reason we have our foot soldiers is because people like me and the councillors are listening to them. We know the issues out there and we're trying to help them.
Okay, listen, thank you very much for coming over and chatting to us. That was the voice there of Senator Manus Boyle. John McAteer, Paddy Rooney, Dr. Joe Kelly are with us. We're going to be getting a update from Michaela Clark as well. And we've got other guests here who will be joining us exclusively live across our social media once we go off the air on the radio just before 1. Back after the break.
Ready to kick off your Christmas party season? Get the gang together for the big festive bingo party happening Saturday 29th of November at the Villa Rose Hotel, Ballybofey.
It's bingo, but not as you know it. Expect festive tunes, cocktails, daft games, plenty of laughs and a €1,000 top cash prize.
Tickets are just €25 plus booking fee and they're on sale now at Eventbrite or HighlandRadio.com.
So grab your friends, your workmates or your whole office and make it your Christmas night out.
The big festive bingo party. It's bingo with a festive twist.
It was always us, butter and mayo, kings of the Centra chicken fillet roll. Now it's all about licking chicken sauce. I'm not the hot squeeze anymore, Taco.
Things change, Mayo. I'm here for you, if you want to talk about it. The new Lickin' Chicken Sauce. Sweet, smoky, honey goodness exclusively available at your local Centra deli. Centra. Live every day.
At Foy's, with expert teams in both Letterkenny and Ballybofey, we deliver professional interior design and colour consultations for both residential and commercial projects. Whether it's a cosy living room or a full renovation, we offer personalised design advice and premium paint choices tailored to your style. See foys.ie or call in store today to Foy's in Letterkenny or Ballybofey, and let's bring your vision to life.
Attention Donegal, Derry and Tyrone. PD Bathrooms and Tiles are proud to unveil our newest and most stunning showroom in Lisfannon Business Park, Buncrana. Located right opposite the Northwest Golf Course, we offer unbeatable quality and incredible value. For 30 years, we've been the experts in total refits, stocking and serving as the sole agent for many top brands. Visit us today and transform your space with the finest bathroom and tile solutions. Telephone 93 95 884. PD Bathrooms and Tiles, where excellence meets value. Lisfannon Business Park, Buncrana, F93H10F.
Coltas Ceoltarí Éireann a lethir Cargis, ag Celliúr na Gangal. Ihe specialta land the Heol, Aran agus Dausa, March an Ortu Lesfihe, Jerry Forward ag a Hort, in Erklan and Rianan, Letcher Canning, Mar Hodge da Doris Nashanta. Be a lethir Hontahia El or na Ceoltarí, na Hauranihe, agus na Dausari traditiona is far in Éireann. Le Tractorat o Kiana Campbell, agus Jermit de Fuiche. Take your foil on Buxa Offige, or Steve Grayson na Herklania, na o Wild de Branche, Letcher Canning de Holtus.
Okay, so just the picture here from the Ora Leisure Centre. The tallying is done. Catherine Connolly, 75% of the vote, 32,690 votes. Fianna Fáil's Jim Gavin, 1,786 votes, 4.1% of the vote. Heather Humphreys, just over 9,000 votes with 20.06% of the vote, and that leaves the spoiled votes at around about 11%, 6,156. We're going to be with you on the radio here for another 6 or 7 minutes, but switch straight over or join now to our socials. Well, we'll run to 2 because we've got an awful lot of conversation to get through. We are joined by Fianna Fáil Deputy Pat de Cope Gallagher. Thanks so much for your time, Pat.
Welcome.
Look at this from a Donegal perspective first. I mean, you know, you've been involved in many, many elections, right? You know the ins and outs, the ups and downs, the left and rights. 4% of the vote. I know the candidate wasn't actually running in the end on the ballot paper. It's poor, isn't it, as you build towards the next general election?
Well, of course, that doesn't mean that 4% was the Fianna Fáil vote. It means that there are people who genuinely wanted to vote for Jim Gavin, and they voted. And a number of those you will have seen have transferred as well. So I wouldn't lay too much emphasis on that. But from my own perspective, this doesn't surprise me today. From one who's in touch with the general public every day, wherever I am, whether I'm in Dunlow or Dublin, or previous to this, whether it was in Strasbourg or Brussels, in touch all the time. That was the message we were getting all the time, that the vast majority were voting in favour of Catherine Connolly. Now, had Jim Gavin stayed in the race, of course, we would have been out canvassing for him, but that didn't happen. So Catherine Connolly did exceptionally well. And the one thing I would say about Catherine Connolly, what resonated with a lot of people, is that she speaks the Irish language. And when I was in the European Parliament, and I might be getting away from the point, I spoke in Irish. And the others from the various countries come up afterwards and say, what language is that? And I was so proud that it was my own language, that people could identify with me. And it's not just people in the Gaeltacht. There's what's known as, Joel understand, Pobl na Gaeilge, who are in Dublin, who are in Belfast, who are all over the country, and they voted. And I think the more that the major parties criticise Catherine Connolly, in fact, I think that was beneficial. And, you know, the question of who she was defending in the courts, I think Jim O'Callaghan made that very clear. You must defend your client.
But people understand that.
People did understand
but the PR people within, particularly Fine Gael in this instance, didn't seem to understand that how that would come back on them. From a personal perspective, you know, I heard you referenced in an Oliver Callan sketch actually recently, which was, it's always good to hear a Donegal voice on, even though it wasn't your own. But it was about really people like yourself not being listened to within the party. You know, if I were looking around, if I remember a Fianna Fáil, I'm going to go to the people that have been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, especially those with a strong connection to the population in their own constituency. Does there have to be some consequences for the leadership of the party for the mess they made of this and the disrespect they showed the very important people that should be very important within the party like yourself?
Well, let me say that at the parliamentary party on the week after Jim Gavin withdrew, I expressed my very strongly held views at the party, and a lot of the views were made available by others who, there's such thing as leaking, but leaking is just not the parliamentary party. Leaks come from government as well, but they were fairly accurate, but I was only expressing my strongly held view. I grew up in a Fianna Fail tradition, where my grandfather, Paddy the Cope, who incidentally was buried the day after De Valera's last inauguration in 1966. Wow. And I grew up in that atmosphere, and I'm a bottom-up person, and I expressed those views at the parliamentary party, and a lot of people, accepted them, but it's not all over yet. We have a committee of 3 with Kieran O'Loughlin, who is the senior counsel, who will be acting as secretary. So we'll wait until they...
But decisions were made by the party leader, who's also expressed his intention to lead the party into the next general election. Are you prepared to say at this point whether or not you believe Micheál Martin is the man to do that? Because if bad decisions were being made at Highland Radio, I would have an opinion on whether, the head of a department or the overall management were the right people to lead that. Do you believe, with all that's gone on now, that Micheál Martin is the man?
I accept what you say about Highland Radio, but I don't think that the Greg Hughes or others would be out expressing them publicly. So I've expressed mine within the party, and I will refrain from further expression or further criticism until my colleagues report back. And it's not all over yet, Greg. I have no doubt, knowing the 3 who are on it, that they'll do this in a very objective sense. And when we have the results then, let me say this immediately, I believe the process which Micheál Martin referred to, but there was no process. We waited until the last minute. I know people in our party that would have been great candidates, but we were never told. We waited until the last minute, and that, they used to say it's taken in smoke-filled rooms, but this one wasn't. It was taken by a few people. And then there are others who had the audacity to suggest, well, we weren't compelled in any way. Listen, if your leader gives a preference, obviously that has benefits. And to add to that, we were told at the party meeting that it would be a free vote and nobody would express, but then all of a sudden the leadership was expressing views. So I think there's a lot of questions to be answered, and maybe it would fill another programme at a later stage.
When you'll actually give me the blooming answers, all right.
Same as you'll give me the answers if you're unhappy with Highland Radio.
Listen, Joe wants to come in, but I don't have time, unfortunately. I do have time. Stay where you are, because we are going to continue this conversation online, by the way. So whoever's back in studio, please pull back my fader if you don't mind, because we're going to continue to broadcast on our social media now, and there are hundreds upon hundreds of you watching across the various platforms.
My Future Fund, the new auto-enrollment retirement savings scheme, is coming. You pay in, your employer pays in, and the state tops it up. It all adds up to a great way to save for your future. And something to look forward to.
We will continue the conversation here.
For more information, visit gov.ie/auto-enrollment.
Too humble in his statement there.
Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
Ideal presidential campaign.
I see your future.
I think that Eamon O'Keefe,
well, his director of elections is sitting
silent
to his
drives.
and I think just Paddy's been
You're
too
starting
humble.
2026 in style. Behind the wheel of a brand new Kia, I see Kia EV3, all new EV4 and EV5, new EV6 and EV9, 0% finance available, free home charger, and a chance to win
of Ireland, and they've rejected a non-grassroots political mindset. And the grassroots have gone with Catherine Connery because she was a grassroots candidate, a woman that could do kicky-ups, a woman of a large family, a woman that had served as a Lascan Corlia, a woman that is native Irish or a fluent Irish speaker. I mean, she'd hit all the boxes. She'd come from the grassroots up, a psychologist and a lawyer or a barrister. She'd hit all those things, and there was no helicopter candidate in her. Neither, like with Jim Gavin, was a helicopter candidate by Fianna Fail, which was never going to work.
Can I put that to you, Pat? Do you feel you were disrespected personally? I mean, given the positions you've held, the position in the office of Lascam Corla, to say that, well, no one came forward, right? Well, sometimes people have earned the stripes, actually, that they're approached, or at least feelers are put out.
You see, we were waiting until the process was unveiled. And maybe we shouldn't have waited, but we should have been told. And I was also told that they'd taken soundings around the country. But here's one. that went into the parliamentary party room 44 years ago was in the parliamentary party 38. I got the P45 once or twice, but I never got the P60. So I wasn't asked, and I would have had views in relation to that. And let me say, in case I don't get the opportunity again, Greg, the one who promoted me as a likely candidate, and the other thing, my name was on a ballot paper in 16 counties in the 26, from Clare to Donegal and from Laois to Louth and all counties in between. And I remember when I read the Chercolin Tribune, maybe I was being too presumptuous. I jotted down the first name for the Council of State, and who was it?
Mr. John McAteer.
McAteer.
All right, listen, Pat. Are you heading to Dublin for the? You'll not head to Dublin, will you? Okay, good stuff.
Listen, that's above my pay grade.
It is. I'm sure it is. Listen, there's not much above your pay grade, right then. Thanks very much. John McAteer is going to switch in for Pat the Cope Gallagher here. We're broadcasting live here exclusively on our socials. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Welcome if you've just turned over from the radio. I'll come back to John in a moment just as he settles himself in there. You're always thinking, Paddy, what are you reflecting on listening to the conversation for the last few moments?
Well, I suppose Pat was making reference there to the review that Fianna Fail are going to carry out, the post-review. Sean Kelly of the MEP down in Munster, the Fine Gael MEP, he's grossly unhappy about the way that he was sort of airbrushed aside very, very quickly here. And it was put to him by a journalist there a couple of days ago about the review that Fine Gael may have to carry out afterwards. And of course the election hadn't been told at that stage, but hadn't been held at that stage. But he was very cynical about it because he was saying there was no point, the people who had made the decisions within Fine Gael in relation to this election, the very same people to carry out the review, that would be no good. It would have to be carried out by people who had no skin in the game. And you mentioned to Pat there as well about the consequences for Micheál Martin. Of course, this is only round one because the government now cannot stall the holding of the by-election in Galway West, isn't it? Yes. Can't hold it now because of the court case that Piers Doherty took way back in 2009. So they're going to have to hold it, we'll say, between now and the end of March. And I suspect that's going to be poor. It's going to make poor viewing for Micheál Martin and Simon Harris as well.
I just feel that we're so far out from a general election that, and the voters' memories can be really quite short, right? And that's a bit of a dig. I don't mind saying it, that they think they can ride this out, pick up the giveaways in the elections coming into it, and this. If you're going to have any crises, now's the time to do it, isn't it?
Absolutely, and remember the general elections, it's hardly 12 months ago since we had it. I mean, 41% of the electorate didn't even vote in that. And there's a case to be made, who knows what's going to happen in the next 3.5 years' time, but the turnout may actually be less than them. I hope it's greater than 37% or whatever, but a lot of people that are disaffected at the moment aren't engaged in the process at all.
All right, John, read between the lines for me. Pat the Cope Gallagher said, what I said at the parliamentary party meeting still stands. He won't be drawn on the question as to whether or not he'll support Micheál Martin to lead the party into the next general election. Now, the obvious thing to do is to say, well, that's effectively saying Pat the Cope Gallagher refuses to endorse Micheál Martin as leader or show faith in him.
There are things going on there, let's presume that both Pat the Cope and Micheál Martin are still there. Pat the Cope needs the Fianna Fail endorsement to win that seat. He's not going to win it on his own as an independent. That's one, these are the very basics that come into play here.
Right.
Micheál Martin will also need Pat the Cope more than Pat the Cope needs him if he's to be part of another government, because come the next election, the whole landscape of political thinking may have changed, and that could be based on what we were seeing there, as Joe kept saying all afternoon. For the first time ever, we have a left-leaning bloc electing a president. I didn't think that we could ever see that because they're very diverse and they have very different views. To hold that bloc together, the Social Democrats, the Labour Party, the People for Profit, and Sinn Féin, Sinn Féin played a very vital role in that. They canvassed and worked very, very strongly and invested their money in it. So Sinn Féin played a crucial role in that. Catherine Connolly wouldn't have been elected without them. Like, in other words, if Sinn Féin had run their own candidate, they probably would have come second. I don't think they would have won it. But, for the first time ever, the left-leaning group see their opportunity is sticking together for the, they don't lose any of their credibility. This will be one of their big fears down the years if you sided with one another, because they have diverse views on things as well. But if they can stick together and hold it there on ballot on the election day, they can form the next government.
God, love
That's
if
a big ask.
I'd love if we could go back to a system whereby you can have different views but sort of share the same space, so to speak. Padraig McLaughlin is Sinn Féin's chief whip, Donegal deputy as well, of course. And, you guys really, really went to bat for Catherine Connolly. There's just absolutely no doubt about that. I didn't realise, and it's my ignorance, that came with the endorsement, so to speak.
Yeah, no, our entire party across Ireland, 32 counties, were just all in, and it was a game changer. Mary Lou was right. I mean, Catherine, she was polling fourth at the time that we joined the campaign. But she's a brilliant candidate. But I think it was the combined opposition, the fact that you had so many, but ours was decisive, and we're absolutely delighted for. I mean, she's going to be a great president, and I think she'll do us proud at home and abroad.
Yeah, do you think she will be a good abroad, if you know what I mean? The government parties were trying to make out that she wasn't very diplomatic. To be honest with you, and I, as a complete and utter person, completely impartial, an awful lot of the criticisms of Catherine Connolly, I didn't see the logic in them, to be honest with you, and I certainly didn't feel that those criticisms were reflective of people that might actually vote against her, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, Catherine Connolly has a remarkable skill set. I mean, any of us who've seen her speaking in the Dáil, she's somebody who speaks softly, but she speaks with real impact, with real substance. And also when she was last Cancorder, and she made this point repeatedly during the election, that she may have very different viewpoints from, the government of the day or overseas leaders, but she will represent us with diplomacy. Of course, she'll always speak truth to power, but she'll do it with diplomacy. And she did that when she was last Cancorder, so I have no concerns around that. I think she'll be a class act, as was Michael D. Higgins. I think she'll continue on with that type of approach that Michael D. Higgins took.
Separately, just in relation to how politics works in this country and what we can do freely without fear of threat or violence, I hope everyone listening was very shocked with what went down yesterday. Mary Lou McDonald was out canvassing with others. They were approached by a person who I should say has actually been arrested at this point. A man in his 30s is in Garda custody. He himself, in the video I saw, and I don't think it was claims that he was physical. The language that was used, it was pointed out to him there were children present. This is a person I've seen previously as the defender of women and children in this country from people coming into it. I thought it was ironic, given the fact that he was probably even more of a threat himself. Is that the future? Are we going to see more of that violence, that rhetoric going forward?
We see it here in our own county. People in Donegal will know who I'm talking about. There are individuals in this county who behave exactly the same in their engagement, in their online presence. It's always hateful. It's always dark. It's always that the country's in ruins. They have nothing to offer. It's a small minority. What we've seen in Dublin was absolutely appalling.
Have you spoken to Mary Lou McDonald since?
I haven't actually spoken to her, because obviously with the presidential campaign and so on, but I've messaged her on our WhatsApp group with our TDs and senators. Naturally, I mean, even within members of our party in Donegal, we've seen abuse being levelled at our representatives, but that was really anybody. Even I noticed online people who obviously wouldn't support Sinn Féin were saying this has crossed the line. I mean, it was mostly a group of women canvassing, and there's a level of aggression, as you say, somebody who would claim to be protecting women from foreign invaders, to use their language. You could see the level.
The one thing I'll say, though, and I'll let you go after this, my observation of where we're at the moment, okay, is that neither Catherine Connolly or Heather Humphreys speaks to a lot of people who have great concerns about migration. So there's that massive political vacuum in terms of the ballot box. Now, people who have concerns are not the same as that man yesterday, but there's a crossover there, right? So how are those people going to get a voice? Like, the only people filling that vacuum, right, are people arguably like him. I mean, if that's not addressed, it's going to be a major problem.
And I'm glad you've said this, because we need to separate out the small minority who are clearly racist, who have an ugly political ideology, from this large block of people who are genuinely concerned, and rightly so. And I've said on your show many times, Greg, the government mishandled this issue. It was the Ukrainian refugee numbers and then the asylum seekers numbers that put serious pressure on communities. In Donegal, nobody took more than Donegal per head of capita in the entire country, and it seemed to be all about where was there a building available, not about what community is best placed to support this challenge. It was all about where there's a building empty, where there's a hotel that's not going too well. That's what the decision making was about. So to be clear, and it's really important, people have a right to express their anger about that and their objection, and not to be labelled racist. So that's really important, that we separate out this guy who, this awful person who did that yesterday, from the people who I speak every day in Donegal. Do it in a mild and measured way. They have concerns. They feel, how can we don't have a school place, we don't have a hospital.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think there's the people I speak to would be saying stuff like, firing fireworks at Gardaí in Dublin and burning out police vehicles is not acceptable, but...
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
The people I speak to, don't want to express any of this through violence, but they feel let down. They feel they weren't listened to, and I think it was very badly mishandled. And as you know, I have made my voice very clear in Donegal. I mean, we have a humanitarian crisis, Greg, as you well know. Nobody's covered it more than you have. A humanitarian crisis, in terms of our people. Thousands and thousands. I went round Letterkenny the other day, just yet again taking on board the full scale of what we face. So that our people are dealing with that, and we were left where there was profit making, where there was buildings available. That seemed to be the government policy. There was no policy. There was no plan. It was all mishandled. So people are rightly concerned about that. And so the worst thing you can do in politics is not listen to people, not hear their concerns, because then what happens, Greg, is you drive them towards people like that.
But there
guy
is
in the video.
there is a difference though between actually having to make decisions and sort of saying the decisions you like to make. Say, for instance, I think part of your party's policy was that no refugees wouldn't go into any place where the services weren't available to support them, but given the numbers that are coming in, theoretically that's nowhere, arguably, right? So you can say that in opposition, but that's not going to jive once you get into government.
Actually, what we said is we said that the amenities should be state-run, not like people have made. Like some people have made literally hundreds of millions from this in profit. Some people have made tens of millions. There's people in Donegal who are financially ruined who are now millionaires again. That's what happened in this county. So what we need to do is be honest about that. Make sure that these amenities are state-run, run by the state, and that there's an actual plan about where they're located. But the way it was done in recent years, I understand completely why people feel disillusioned. Final thing is this, Greg, if you don't mind me saying.
No.
The turnout in Donegal, I think, is going to be in around 40%.
Right, I've got 37%, but that's in and around 40, is it?
Where the confusion is that the only people who can vote in this election are Irish citizens. So that's going to probably push it up in terms of their actual electorate.
Understood.
So I'm going to predict it's going to be in around 40%. And by the way, the other thing is, which is positive, around 10,000 more people voted in this election than voted in the last presidential election. That's a significant increase in voters. So the fact that there was two candidates, it's almost remarkable.
Especially and Catherine Connolly's over 80% if you take out the spoiled votes as well. Listen, Pádraig McLaughlin, thanks very much
guys.
indeed. It's great to have you accessible as always. We're here with you live, streaming exclusively across our social media, which is fantastic because we don't have to take ad breaks, though we love them because they pay the wages for whatever they are. And don't be afraid to comment, by the way, as well. Lots of you commenting in. John's there, Mary, Neve, Anthony, Michael, and on it goes. But it's great to have you on board here. Right, so who haven't I gone to more recently? Dr. Joe Kelly.
I've just listened to Pádraig there, and look, again, it was a game changer in fairness, and congratulations to them for that, in the sense that they're going to be victorious. But the point that I would have issue with him is when he talked about the migration there and the policy that
immigration,
he talked immigration. The policy there, and so far as I see it, is the anger that out there is a lot of anger out there because we are told, and I've gone back to what I said at the beginning, we are told, and we will be at the end of this year, according to the IMF, among the most advanced economies in the world, we are going to be number one. So we are among, if not the wealthiest country in the world. So we're awash with money technically, and yet, as I said earlier, everyone's down 2% on tax takes. What's annoying people is that our money is being squandered. Absolutely squandered by this government. And one of the places that they've been squandering the money of the hard-working taxpayers of this country is that the open border policy.
See, that's a misrepresentation.
Let me finish.
No, it isn't, because I'll tell you why. The entire budget, I don't have the exact figures right, but our entire budget is, and don't come at me saying I'm pro this, that and the other. I'm just not you or anyone on social media. Our entire budget's something like, it's well in excess of 100 billion, okay? Our spend on all things, iPass, Ukraine, accommodation, food, transport, fixing their cars, whatever way you want to describe it, is 1.6 billion.
That's not accurate.
It is
Greg.
accurate.
No,
it's 1.6
billion. You have to include the social welfare budget. You have to include the education budget. You have to include the health budget, and that's all hidden.
They're in this country. No, listen. Someone in an iPass centre gets 38 quid a week.
No, hold on a minute, Greg.
It's a tiny fraction. It's less than.
That's
less than
not
1.5%.
a fair representation, Greg. And I can tell you this factually, and I know a surgeon who recently spoke to me in the last number of days were telling me how refugees coming into the country are jumping the queue ahead of Irish people that they need to operate on. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't get seen to, but when Irish people are pushed down the system, Greg, and I'm out working and paying my taxes and paying my health insurance.
The point I'm saying, it's very important that when you have this conversation, it's not overstated. Now, unless the government figures are wrong, they've allocated in total €1.6 billion for to service the refugee iPass needs.
It doesn't
That's what's
include,
in the budget.
I understand that, but what they're not being, and I hear what you're saying, but they're not being honest with that articulation, because it does not include how much of that is actually of our national education budget is being given, for example, for Ukrainians and the special resources that are going in that. How much of our health budget is being absorbed by the foreigners.
Yeah, but they are living here, right? The Ukrainians are living here, Joe. We have to be careful here.
No, well, look,
they're living and working here.
I don't like the idea that Ireland is full. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is Ireland, anybody that wants to come and work here, you are more than welcome. We would love to have
anybody. You're also including those that are working here in your figures.
But when you have the likes of, just again, when you have people coming to this country that are not working, and if you listen to Ashley Murphy's father, who gave a talk about how these people who came to this country for an opportunity, Joseph Pushka, he has cost our country millions between the legal cases.
I'm not sure he ever came here for opportunity.
Well, that's what he said. This is what Mr. Murphy, Ashley Murphy's father-in-law, said that they had come. The father-in-law, had said that they'd come for opportunity, and rightly so. They should be given an opportunity. But the point I'm trying to say is, what's angering a lot of the electorate is the mismanagement of our monies. We're working too hard, and we're not benefiting from the reward of that.
But my point is I get exactly what you're saying, but the mismanagement of our money, right, even if you include the parts that you do, is a fraction of what the mismanagement is. It's not all of it, right? You know, it's not all of it. The reason we're less well off after the budget is to keep inflation down. You know, the brakes were given to the developers because they had the government by the balls. That's effectively, you know what I mean. So the decisions were made, right, and bad decisions that affect us. But it's not. You can't lay it all down on the misappropriation of funds on people coming into the country. But
that's part of it. But the other point is the burger barns getting, the tax breaks.
Don't even get me going, because I will get angry.
But this is what I'm trying to just say that the point is that it's the misappropriation and misspending of our money, and that has angered people. And a lot of people have voted for Catherine Connolly.
Listen, everybody, even members of Fianna Fail and Fine Gael are angry. John, Paddy, where do you want to jump in here? Is there another thread that you want to pull on, or do you want to reference what Joe was saying?
I was just doing some little bit of analysis on the actual turnout. The actual turnout when the spoiled ballots are excluded is about 34%.
Right.
It's in around that 34%.
Which is, we were talking mid-30s,
yeah, mid-30s. It's slightly under that. Now, the figure that we have there is slightly, that figure of 134,406 or something, that would have included all those who were entitled to vote at the local elections last year. It would have included all the Ukrainians and all that who have come in here. This is a slightly different one. The actual figure is 127789, as produced by the Electoral Office in Dublin last Tuesday. So you're talking about 34% when you exclude that, and like at the end of the day, it's a very poor reflection on the fact that we had the two main parties trying to contest it.
All right.
Like overall, what is happening overall is that the numbers going to the polls is falling, election on election, and they're not connecting with the people. You mean you can talk about 2.5 million on TikTok and all that.
But the amount of people listening to the radio is declining. Now we hold up quite well here at Highland Radio, thank God. But if you go back to 2018. 82% of the population listened to radio every single day. Now it's 69%. Newspaper circulation has collapsed as well. I think the Tyrconnell Tribune's a little bit like Highland. We're bucking the trend in relation to that, and I think it's down to the content and how we put stuff out, right? But that talks to me about a disengagement across the board in many areas. The mainstream
that's a very
media,
interesting
newspapers, voting.
Yeah. That's a very interesting point you make about connecting with the public. You're connecting with the people every day. You have them on the airwaves. We're connecting with the people on the ground every week of the year. We have events on last night, tonight. We're out covering them. They're going to be in the paper next week. Local newspapers have gone away from doing that. They're more
cut and paste, if the truth
cut
be
and
told.
paste to a great extent.
And sharing articles.
That is not working. Generally speaking, what you see in the Tribune is pretty new. It's pretty different. And it's pretty off the wall at times. People buy that.
Yeah. No, and listen, I'm not saying it because it's sitting in front of me. I say it many a time. It's one of, and I mean this with no disrespect to the incredibly hard journalists working in the newspaper industry, that it is arguably one of the last papers left. Paddy, sorry, now you can jump back again because I know you wanted to come back in.
I'm sort of smiling here now because this conversation is swinging violently from immigration to statistics to the media, and I'm going to take it somewhere else now. Just a comment from Padraig McLaughlin was talking about Catherine Connolly and the way that she spoke very softly and very effectively. And I think any fair-minded person would think that she conducted herself with grace right throughout the campaign. And there's one particular issue that springs to mind. I think it was the final TV debate, and I think it looks like that that Heather Humphreys had been coached to be much more aggressive and take an attack dog approach with her, and she was continuously interrupting Catherine Connolly. And Catherine held her nerve, and there was one occasion anyway she sort of bit back at her and she said, I never interrupted you, and there's a lot of things I could say to you about how your engagement with the Farrell family, and I decided not to do that. So
well, she said it.
She said it. She said
okay,
it. I know, she said it.
It's clever.
But anyway, so she conducted herself with style and grace, and there's a thing about winning with grace, and there's an issue about losing with grace. Helen McEntee, I referred to earlier, was interviewed this morning, and she had the good grace to congratulate Catherine Connolly and said that the government looking forward to working with her. About 30 seconds later, following a question about the attack ads that Fine Gael had issued or whatever, Helen McEntee went away off on a rant about Catherine Connolly.
Completely
and the election
out of
was
touch.
over.
Completely out of touch.
And a government minister that, after praising her and working with her, then went to the election's over. I mean, why did she do that? And they just have to accept the result and get on with it.
The thing also too, and this is where I believe that the media are doing themselves a great disservice. A lot of the focus was on taking Catherine Connolly down. So she said something, and they either printed it verbatim or interpreted it as something else, expecting to say, right, we've got you. And then Catherine Connolly comes out and say, yeah, that's what I said, and this is why I said it. And I think they were kind of looking at themselves going, right, what do we do here, right? Because we thought we got a big thing on her, and actually that's what she says and that's what she believes. 1 second, John, go ahead.
There's a genuine reason for that there. The national media literally depends so heavily on government advertising. If it wasn't there, they'd go
So
by
do you
the
think
wayside.
that they do that purposely, or it's just their minds are set that this is the cash cow?
I think they're told to do it. I don't think they have a say in that. The management is telling them, just go easy on Heather Humphreys, go easy on whoever, Simon Harris or whatever it is. But without that advertising, they would be banjacked, most of them. But that's the reason for that.
Can I just say what it's in my
statement from you, John?
Yeah, can I just say one of the things what it's in my
and
mind?
I don't disagree either. Go ahead.
I'll lose a thought. One organisation that was very, very disappointed in how they conducted themselves, and this was RTE. My wife and I were coming back from Belfast, I think, was it on Tuesday evening, and Cormac O'Hara on the Drive Time programme interviewed Miriam O'Callaghan, and she was talking about the programme, and she said about herself and Sarah McInerney, and they picked their clothes in the studio design, and that they had worked with the production team over 4 or 5 days getting the questions organised with the candidates with. And, you know, myself and my wife then sat down with our popcorn and our Diet Coke to watch this. And I was never, ever as disappointed or deflated in all my time, because literally 98% of the questions of the issue they raised is stuff that Kieran Cuddy had brought up about 5 weeks before that. It was about Syria, it was about the banks, it was about Russia, Germany, all of that kind of stuff. Nothing new. And I would, you know, I felt like ringing into RT and say, well, what were the Sarah McInerney and Miriam O'Callaghan talking to the production
they
team
couldn't
about?
ask about Irish, could they?
No.
Ask Gaeilge?
No.
They couldn't. But, no, you know what I mean.
But they could.
For the reasons you've outlined,
I mean,
they couldn't.
it was the most repetitive.
But the reason you
it was
outlined...
the same repetitive stuff, time after time after time. I mean, Tuesday's debate, which was the last of the season, thankfully, it was the most underwhelming from the presenters.
Well,
there was no imagination.
We got you to watch it for me.
Few things. John has said there,
and I'm not even joking.
But what John has said there is, as a media person, a seasoned media person, that RT are doing what they're told to do is quite frightening. And to think, for example, and this is maybe adding into what John is saying, that the government have given them $750 million, 750,000 of our taxes to keep RT going, plus the 240 million they get from our TV licence. So they're getting about $1 billion from us. And that's sanctioned, so to speak, by the government. So the person that pays the fiddler calls the tune.
This brings me into the next sort of, and I'll go left to right on it. Did you want to finish your point?
Yeah, no, but the other thing that I'm wanting to bring in on the back of that there, that you were talking about the presidential, Paddy talked about the presidential and how disappointed you were. And they've done this now consistently. The system that seems to happen when it comes to presidential campaigns is this: that we assassinate everybody until we have a last man, or in this case, last woman standing. And if you think people will understand this, Sean Gallagher, Dana, Senator Norris, even the old minister that was Mary Harney,
Brian Lenihan.
Back in my early youth here and there. Every time RT go or the media go and assassinate a candidate, and they're never asking them what they should be asking them. And if Miriam Callaghan and Sarah McInerney had anything between their two ears, they would have read the Constitution, Articles 12 to 14, and know what the 5. And if I was standing as a presidential candidate, I said, tell me, you've not asked me one question relevant to the job description.
It was incredibly
because they don't
disappointing.
Know it.
I know what's happening in Gaza is incredibly important, but I also know it's of no consequence to the presidential election of Ireland.
Can I just say one thing? Article 13.1, subject to this Constitution, further functions and powers can be conferred on the President according to law. That question should have been asked of both candidates.
What do you propose?
What is your vision? We have 800,000 people that have left this country, young people that have left this country in the last 10 years. What vision have they for the next 10 years?
I want to move on a little bit, if you don't mind,
and
I'll come to you on this one first, Paddy. Let me propose a scenario, and if it's wrong, contradicted as well. Politically, where we're at, the government in power at the moment is centre or centre-left. If things, say for instance, if things stay as they are, that continues for another at least 6-7 years. Say for instance the coalition of the left does work, right, then they might take power. They might do 2 terms. So that could be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Where the 49% of people that felt there was no one to vote for, they're not represented in the national media. They're certainly not represented in the national newspapers, and they're not going to be represented nationally, politically, arguably, for a very long time, because I can't see any path for a very right-leaning party getting into power. So you've got 49% of the population effectively that are going to feel disenfranchised by the media, by politics and whatever for quite some time. What is going to happen in this country?
But you see, Greg, we've been spoiled in this country down the years because of very, very high turnouts, way back when I was a small boy, and that's a long, long time ago. You had turnouts in the late 60s and the early 70s and so on. If you look at both local and national elections in Britain for the last 40 years, they have had a fraction of a turnout for all that. And there's been a lot of people in Britain who've just signed out a long time ago. Nothing has really happened as a result of that, by the way. And I think we're moving in the same way in this country, because the people, a lot of people out there, particularly young people, feel that the system is not working for them. I was talking to Joe before we started off this morning. One of my kids is in Dublin. Himself and his partner are paying well over €2,000 a month in rent for their accommodation, and they can't save enough to be able to get a mortgage, and round and round and round they go. And the two of them are very well educated and they're very successful, but they have a sense that they're very disconnected, that the system or the machinery of government is not there helping them to help themselves, if you know what I mean. So we will get away with that for a while.
You see, the thing is though, with those people that you talk of, there might be a series of budgets that might make them feel a little bit more included. I'm on about sort of people well away from that, large swathes of the people. Maybe they are very concerned about migration. Maybe they're very concerned about the cultural changes. Maybe they're concerned about the changes within their own communities. And Padraig's quite good at sort of referencing that, right? But policy-wise, I don't think he's going to be able to address that as part of a coalition of the left. Let me put it to you like that. That's going to be a problem coming down the line. John, do you have anything to say about...
You made a point there earlier on that, Fianna Fail, Fine Gael could be centre, left or right. They're neither. They're just asleep at the wheel.
Okay.
Simply asleep at the wheel. Because they've got into this PR exercise of managing failure. Every morning, their first port of call is the national TV and the national radio stations.
It's a minister per episode of Morning Ireland.
Minister per episode.
That's just the way it is.
It's all positive, good news, making you feel good. But the reality is that they haven't managed the housing crisis. That's why so many people are leaving the country. They can't afford to stay here. They haven't managed the health crisis. Our population, we're probably a couple of thousand beds short in the health service, and that we have been that way since probably the 80s. And our population has continued to grow and grow and grow. And the only matching compensation from the government is that their list of excuses becomes more absurd day in and day out. And this is where we're at here. And you see, unless that bloc that has elected Catherine Connolly today look at that in depth and make a conscientious decision that they will hold together and that they will contest the general election without losing their separate identities. And that's going to be a very, very big one for them to do.
Well, I think personally, and it's unfortunate, we've nearly polarised people into choosing left and right in this campaign, and it should never, our president should never be political, and it should never be about right or left or far right or far left. It should be about right and wrong. And in fairness, I think Catherine Connolly didn't actually go down the leftist agenda. I think she tried to bring an integrity to the role, and she was asked a number of questions. Well, what will you say as president? And she more or less says, well, as president, I can't say anything on these things. That there's an integrity of rightness. And I think young people are changing, Greg. And I teach young people. They think a lot differently to our generation.
Well, the young one's been very influential in
they
this.
They know when something's not right. And it's not that they're looking for left politics or right politics. They're looking for something that is actually right, that's something justice and integrity and decency. And you're saying about a minister per show or whatever else. That's not what they're offering us. And people are going to go looking elsewhere. But here's the historical concept of that. We as a nation, historically, and this is a very concerning thing for me to say this as a historian, but if you look at our proclamation of 1916, Patrick Pearse says it very clearly there, six times in the last 300 years we have asserted our right in arms. People in Ireland traditionally, if we go looking at it historically, know that political change doesn't happen without violence. And what the political system at the moment is doing, it is driving us into a situation whereby it may stir something that I wouldn't like ever to be seen stirred again in our country. But young people and the people that are spoiling their votes, what's the next port of call for them if they're not happy? And we saw what we talked about with Padraig there about the attack in Dublin. That's not healthy, but is there an underbelly there that we're trying to ignore, that there's a swell of dissatisfaction? And I just wonder, had the 800,000 young people that have left, emigrated from this country, were still here, and that 800,000 were in the housing crisis, could you imagine the pressure cooker that would be in this country now? And maybe it is the Fianna Fail, Fine Gael policy to keep having the young people leave this country so as that pressure cooker doesn't oversteam or overboil and leads to a revolution that would get very, very unhealthy democratically, in the sense that it might...
Joseph, ever to see a revolution again. people just opt out.
Opt out,
you know.
yeah.
Young people, as you say, they're looking for justice, and they're better educated. They see what the government is doing. The parties are treating their backbenchers with total disrespect. Just look at the way Fianna Fail selected their candidate for the presidential election. 70 members of a parliamentary party, completely and utterly ignored. Pat the Cope sat here an hour ago, or whatever it was, talking about that there, that you literally feel disenfranchised, even as a member of the parliamentary party. So I suppose this thing about getting into this bubble when you get into power is very, very evident, that we do need a change of government, we need a change of thinking, but it's not going to come with Fianna Fail or Fine Gael, and we might as well accept that.
Well, twice, sorry to cut across you, John, but twice in the last 50 years we had a mass movement in this country. One was in the early 1980s, when I think there was 250,000 people marched in Dublin around taxation. That was about the high levels of PAYE at the time, and the government took note of that, and was always about reducing the level of PAYE and to widen the tax band. The second time then we had it in the last 10 or 15 years, and that was about water, when there was thousands of people on the street, and the government then seen the writing on the wall and they had to do away with that. So something may arise that if the government of the day cannot ignore the huge numbers of people, if they come out on the street and they start to to protest, governments won't ignore that. So it can be changed. I was going to make some other point, but I sort of skipped.
No, we can come back to that. Stay right where you are, and it'll allow you a chance to process it. When Michaela was sitting in for me, and Margaret McGeehan's a big fan of yours, Michaela, and wants you taking over personally, by the way, because I cut across people, but that's all right. Sorry, Margaret, she's leaving, so whatever chance you had of that. You're stuck now until they find someone else to replace me. Right, now we're joined by Jamie, who's an ATU law student. He was in studio with Michaela, actually, as I mentioned her earlier this week, as a Catherine Connolly campaigner. So I presume, Jamie, you're cock-a-hoop today, are you?
Which is an old Met phrase meaning excited.
Yeah. I more just thought it was quite clear from like yesterday when you saw like the opinions and stuff, and like I was even chatting to people over with the Electoral Commission. Yeah, and they were saying that it's the clearest one they've ever seen. Like it's quite so. Like I don't think there was this big hoopla around it. Like you could see that like honesty, integrity, and just clearness was flowing through Connolly, while Heather Humphrey was kind of just trying to like meander her way.
Yeah, I think the young people have come out. We haven't seen a breakdown of the stats and all, and that will come over the course of the day and into tomorrow, but it seems that young people felt inclined to vote for Catherine Connolly. What is it about her as a young person that has you supporting her? And I mean, is there anything politically she stands for that you go, right, okay, that's it?
Well, I'd say it's quite clear. Like, young people we see like, as like someone was saying over here, like there's a lot of young people do want to emigrate because they see no like change in this country, because the same people are going to get voted back in. So Connolly offered a stance that was outside of the government to put like a bit of pressure on the government and represent the Irish people to the best of her ability, while some people saw Humphrey more as just the same thing, getting her barking orders from the tops at Fine Gael, being told what she can say. Now, I'm not doubting she would have took her pledge and been a neutral party, and not saying she wouldn't have fought for the Irish people, but a lot of young people in particular saw like a lot of young people vote for like these left parties, and they saw that like those parties supported Connolly, so that was more inclined. And when even in the Dáil you hear her speak on issues, and you're like, I can understand there's a human behind there. It's not just here's a script being put in front of me, I have to read it out. Like even on like prime time, like Heather Humphreys was just going on like whatever was populist at the time. First she says, for Council of State, she was going, I'm going to set up a council of young people. Then she goes, I'm going to set up a council of, no, she didn't say, I'll also have loads of old people. And then I was thinking, when she was sat there, am I going to have a council of middle-aged people? Like, it's...
Be good.
Yeah.
I could get on with that before I qualify for the old one.
or even at the start, she like said, if you're at the riots, or if you know anyone at the riots, make sure they come home. Like if these people are so polarised that they're going out rioting, they're not going to be like listening to the prime time and saying, "Oh, presidential candidate Heather Humphreys says I should go home. Let's go home."
I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I know that. It's interesting. All right, Jamie, well done. Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck. How long have you got left in your studies?
I have another year. I'll graduate next year.
Okay, really? Oh, that's quite good. Well done to you. Okay, fantastic stuff. That's Jamie Brown. Jamie Brown, an 80-year Law Society student. If you've just switched on or tuned in, we're broadcasting here exclusively on our socials until 2 o'clock. Everything's pretty much done and dusted here. Catherine Connolly, 75% of the vote plus change. Jim Gavin, 4.1% of the vote. Heather Humphreys, 20.06% of the vote. Spoiled votes, 6,156. The turnout, it's officially here, not officially actually, unofficially here. These are tallies, by the way, but they're going to be pretty accurate at 37%. But as John McIntyre has been explaining to us, the actual valid, the number of people that actually are entitled to vote's going to skew that downwards somewhat. It was about 40% last time, John, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't actually. Was it? Yeah, 43.9.
Right, okay.
43.9. Yeah, we are down. Yeah.
All right.
The thought that I lost there has come back to me again.
Brilliant.
So there's something.
This is why we need a council for older people.
Yeah, a council for older people. Yeah, I'm all for that. I was just going to make the point. What does all this mean? Does it mean something or does it mean
That's a good
nothing?
question.
So Kevin Cunningham of Ireland Thinks polling group was interviewed on RT this morning, and they carried out some polling yesterday on.
You're not supposed to mention RTE on the station.
But anyway.
Oh no, you are. No problem. I don't worry
and
about that.
They
I might get a job yet.
And they. So he asked people about. They voted for Catherine Connolly. If there was a general election held very soon, would they vote for one of the 3 or 4 or 5 main parties of the left? Interesting enough, less than 50% of them said that they would. We're talking about Labour, Sinn Féin, Social Democrats, People Before Profit. So only 50% of them, or less, said that they would vote
So
on the
the
left
electorate
the
really do get the difference between a general election, a local election, and a presidential election.
It does. So we'll see now what comes out of this. A general election is still a long time away. It's at least 3.5 years away unless something happens in the meantime. Something may carry over from that. It did in 1990 when Mary Robinson took everybody's surprise. The Labour Party had their biggest win up until that period of time as a result of that. So we'll see. But the general election, for instance, am I right, John, in 2011 when Fianna Fáil were eviscerated, a proxy Fianna Fáil candidate in that election then, just about 8 or 9 months later, Sean Gallagher, he almost won that presidential election until he self-destructed himself. So one of them doesn't actually mean that it can lead to another. Not automatically to another, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, firstly, do any of you think the government will run its full term? Is this a changing point, or does that those statistics you just quote prove it's not? I don't know.
I actually believe that it is a changing point because both main leaders are under pressure. They're under pressure from their backbenchers.
Every week there seems to be something else.
Every week now. Michael Martin has made an awful balls out of it himself by excluding the parliamentary party to make sure that it was his candidate and his candidate alone that turned out to be Jim Gavin, that turned out to be a disaster, that turns out to where it is today at 4 or 5%. You know, Fianna Fáil could never see themselves in that kind of a dreadful position. And as far as Heather Humphreys and Fine Gael is concerned, blame Simon Harris. That was obviously his decision because he's the party leader. I mean, he did say, you know, that it was a bonus to have Heather Humphreys because she'd been a recent government minister, and that well, I mean, as late as yesterday, he was predicting that she would win comfortably. So, like, he is completely out of touch with reality here. The public has to see that, but his own backbenchers, you talk about the Sean Kelly thing in the south of Ireland. That there's going to be an issue there for Simon Harris from his backbenchers, and he may not last as long as Leo Varadkar did. You know, it just depends on how they are going to handle it.
Where would Billy Kelleher be at this point?
It's a good point. Huge poll topper in the European.
He'd be well ahead of.
He would be. He would.
Of Heather Humphreys.
He would be in contention. I wouldn't have seen him winning it. I don't know if you would have seen that, Joe. I couldn't have seen it. No. But like at the end of the day, he would have been a very credible candidate, and if he hadn't won, he would have been a very credible loser. He would have copper fastened Simon Harris.
And I would love to have seen moderators of debate set the two of them on each other as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Here's something that maybe, and John will understand this a lot better in the longevity of his understanding of statistics and political voting. In this century, Fianna Fáil has only once contested the presidential election, and when they did, they got 4%.
Yeah,
like that's phenomenal. Now, Fianna Fáil have been in power more times than any other political party.
What does this then translate to come general election time?
I'll tell you what it translates for Fianna Fáil right away, is that they've lost €250,000. Because had they got a quarter of a quota, they would have been given
Do
250.
we not pay most of that? No?
Yeah, no, us taxpayers.
We do, yeah.
We'll be paying Heather Humphreys and we'll be paying Catherine Connolly's campaigns both 250, so $500,000 in this election right away, just the funds for the posters.
So I'm paying for those posters that went up, nearly cleaned the head off a cyclist, and then were taken down again.
Yeah, but
that doesn't feel good.
But more
that doesn't feel like a good waste spent of my money.
More importantly, I would say, John, and maybe I'd love to hear what you think about this. I think Micheál Martin will probably go down as being one of the most tactically brightest politicians that has ever faced the role of Taoiseach and the Dáil. For a man that has almost, in the last 10 years, has almost spent 5 years in power, with 17% the last time and 21% this time. He's got less than a quarter of the vote of this country, and he has managed to have 50%
yeah, but you were talking about proportional representation earlier on. That's what it's all about.
But what I'm saying is that I accept that.
He's very good at what he does.
He's very good at what he does. So the point is, anybody that's going to try to challenge him realise that this man has been there for 5 out of the 10 years, has been to the top, and is...
What I would say about that there is, until now, he had control of the party. He has lost that. The backbenchers are taking back that control.
Paddy, what did you
want the point I was going to make, Micheál Martin is now moving into very choppy waters because there's a by-election coming up in Galway. I cannot see a Fianna Fáil winning that, and I can't see them doing well in it either. My two colleagues here may well know what happened to Jack Lynch in 1979. He lost 3 by-elections on the bounce. That's what actually killed him, nothing else. The economy was going pear-shaped as well, but that's what ruined him. The famous Harold Macmillan thing about events, my dear boy, events. That's what. So it's the unplanned or the unforeseen things that may happen. You know, a TD becomes the European Commissioner, or somebody dies, or they resign, or whatever. And there's 2 or 3 by-elections, and the government lose them all. Fianna Fáil perform very badly in all of them. If the TDs, backbench TDs in particular, lose confidence in Micheál Martin's leadership and the fact that of his ability to maintain their seats, he will be history here a lot quicker than I think people
a really strong indication of that was how many people voted for Billy Kelleher when it was actually they were being told, look, this is my man. So we can come back to that, but I just want to ask what this means for Mary Lou McDonald, right? Because off the back of the last election, you know, we've been very critical of how Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil have handled certain things, but, you know, Sinn Féin and its leadership managed the last general election very, very poorly. The messaging, where they stood in certain things, you know, voting for saying we'll deliver change, and then it turned out it was just kind of not really change. Has this re-energised her, Paddy? Do you think the fact that she seems to have, you know, everyone was going like game changer, you're having a laugh, but it seems that you know this has been a game changing.
It is, and I mean I have to say about Sinn Féin, they're one of the. They've come out of this well. The golden rule is if you don't have a credible candidate to run for the presidency, you stay out of it. Sinn Féin done that in the last time when the election was on. When was it, 2017 or 18 or whatever it is, and they ran their member for the European Parliament, Leith Nirida. She really didn't fit the role, and she only got 6 or 7%. It actually, there was a carryover damage for a period of time to Sinn Féin, even though they did come around and do well in the election then in 2020. I've lost me.
No, I was asking you what does this mean for Mary?
Oh yeah, for Mary Lou McDonald. Well, they've made the right decision this time because they could have gone into a situation about running Mary Rose Conway in Mayo or something and ending up with 5 or 6%, and they would have come out of it very badly. They made the right decision to stay out of it. I think there's a case to be made, you know, that Micheál Martin didn't really want Fianna Fáil involved in this either. He he did agree to it at the end of August. I think he was sort of press ganged into it. I think if
they
he
were
had his
press
way,
ganged
he would have
into
stayed
it.
out of
That's
it.
interesting because I felt that was the case. But you see, that's at that point there where you make the right decision. And that shows your leadership, isn't it? That means you can't it's not my problem. John, where does this, has this reinvigorated Mary Lou McDonald's, or re-energised Mary Lou McDonald's leadership of Sinn Féin, do you think?
It remains to be seen over the next 18 months to 2 years. There'll be a lot of euphoria in the next couple of months, but the parties will all go their own way and have their own agendas and their own policies. Those party leaders would have to make a conscientious decision behind the scenes that come hell or high water, that our focus is on the general election and that we would need to have something together of a kind of a manifesto, a rough sketch mark of where we can and where we can't agree on, and go for a space in between that. Now that's a long way off, and a lot of things could happen in that time. Mary Lou McDonald probably at this point will feel to be the real winner today. But even though she has won nothing herself, will she lead the party into the next general election? I presume she will, because there isn't an obvious leader there looking for the job.
We got lots of leaks from Fianna Fail, Fine Gael, but I mean, there was a point there whereby I think it was a Thursday, Jarlath Byrne's name was in there, Mary Lou McDonald's name was in there, Michelle O'Neill's name might have been in there still, Pearse Doherty's name was in there, and I'd love to know what happened over those intervening days, Joe, whereby it was like the game changer on the Monday or the Tuesday is we're back in Catherine Connolly, because it seemed there were genuinely many options on the table, and who made the shout? I wonder who's taking the credit.
Well, I don't particularly think that it was a game changer. It's just that she happily said...
Catherine Connolly's on 75% here. It's a game changer,
No,
Joe.
but at the time when she said it, I don't think that she understood what that meant. I don't think anybody could have understood what it meant. And the question is, it is a game changer insofar as now the people of Ireland are maybe waking up to the reality that there may be an alternative to Fianna Fail.
But it's all on the left.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
is... I would love someone to address my question earlier about...
Yeah, so the question is then, can that left consolidate? And I just wonder, and you had people here like, I wonder, Michael Collum and Thomas Pringle, for example, you've had them here today, like they'll be claiming Catherine Connolly as theirs because she launched Michael Collum's campaign, and Thomas would have been a good friend of hers, but that Sinn Féin will be claiming, well, she's her candidate as well. But if it came to an election, are they going to work together or not? I don't know. Is the People Before Profit, Paul Murphy, or the Greens, are all those going to come together and work together in some kind of plan?
Well, I presume is it not, Paddy, whereby Sinn Féin say vote Pearse Doherty 1, Pádraig McLaughlin 2, and then an independent or one of those that were part of this agreement 3. I mean, that's how you work with a general election, isn't it? No?
It can be made to work if the dynamic is there, that in the aftermath of this they will sit down and analyse how they succeeded against all the odds to pull all those different strands of left-wing politics together, because they never agreed on anything before. Probably going back to the days of Democratic
I'm thinking of
left
Jeremy
and Labour.
Corbyn's party.
Yeah.
You know, that hadn't even began, and they all realised that the people that had joined it initially had all different points of view.
Of course they had, but you see, it's going to take. This is going to be a very, very difficult one to follow, because it's going to take a very strong leader to pull that all together. There's going to be compromise. And Mary Lou McDonald would have to compromise with the Social Democrats and with Labour and all of that.
Someone talked to me too, though, about the 49% of people that probably aren't going to be represented by this coalition of the left. Where are they going? Is this? I don't think, with all due respect, I don't believe that Ain't To are going to be the party that benefits from sort of maybe having that space over there, right? So who fills that political vacuum that's evidently there?
I'm just wondering, will Maria Stein stand in that by-election in Galway? And that will be a real litmus test as to where the electorate are. And even if she doesn't win and it's not her constituency, but it will be an avenue for disaffected voters to go out and actually do something. That would be an interesting, and that's one that I'll watch with interest. Where is that spoiled vote that actually went out to vote, and where's the vote that would have gone out to vote that didn't go out to vote? If they have someone, will they vote for them? And again, it's an unmeasurable, it's unquantifiable.
But you know, you pack all that up and we go away from here. Galway West election will come up 6 months time or thereabouts. It'll be a whole new. It'll be a whole new
100%.
dynamic.
Yeah, so there'll be
it'll be
many
it'll be a
new
very
cycles.
localised one in
Very
Galway.
many
And
new
not
cycles.
for those that have spoiled their vote, because they'll remember.
In the 100-year history of this state, since independence, the left has never been in a position to sort of galvanise themselves together. Two of the parties within that, the Labour Party and the Social Democrats, I mean, most of the membership, or particularly the elected representatives in the Social Democrats, have actually come out of the Labour Party. And it's not that you couldn't put a cigarette paper between the two parties in relation to policies. Their main difference is personal, and there's a sort of a visceral hatred there among some of the people in the leadership in the Labour Party with leadership of the Social Democrats. So I don't know how you would get them into the one room even to talk about things. So it's going to be very, very difficult to galvanise them all together, and we'll see how that goes.
Okay, but for the opposite side, so let's just say, for instance, a Donald Trump in the United States. He is very popular. He's anti-immigration, or more control on immigration, a severe major pushback on issues such as transgenderism. What else? Lots of stuff in that space, right? Abortion, lowering the terms, or getting rid. Right? Okay. There is space in this country for lots and lots and lots of people to seek someone out like that, or a party that represents those values, but that's not there at the moment. Is it there at the moment? Does anyone see it there at the moment?
See,
will that emerge?
You see, one of the things, Greg, now that's not going to endure for a long time further is the relationship that Fine Gael and Fianna Fail have with each other. I mean, to all intents and
purposes, they
purposes,
actually say, right, we need to cut ties here because we're sharing 40% and one of us needs to crack on to 30%.
Yeah, because what's going to happen now, they've either in a confidence supply arrangement or a coalition arrangement, they've been in power now for something like 10 years. I suspect that kind of arrangement will go on for about 6 or 7 years, but what's going to happen is the political system is going to swallow one of them, or it's going to push them together, or some new party out of the ashes of one of them will come out, because they're not going to be in power in a perpetual manner. They're not going to do it because the electorate just won't buy it. They're going to get tired of it.
Is there any demand there for a new party?
Yeah,
we have a range of parties as we are.
Well, here's a demand: 6,156 people for one.
What does that mean from 5.5 million people?
No, because it's about look, what does it mean that for 33% of people decided to vote at all?
So you're going to have to you'd have to have some very strong personality with a different message to try and lead a new organisation.
No, that's sitting second here, well above. Last time was Peter Casey, right? And he's the closest in that space.
Into was the last party that probably.
Don't know why they're not breaking through.
No, they're not. They're coming nowhere near it.
Just to carry on from both of you, is like the reality is that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, at some stage the story has to come to an end. But the reality is that their vote is going. Every election it's going down. Now Fianna Fáil kicked it a little bit up, but as a percentage of vote,
turnout.
Yes, but as percentage, their vote is actually going down. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that Sinn Féin and the left vote is going up, but there is a growing discontent somewhere in the middle. Now, does that mean a new party? Trying to start a new party is impossible. So just again, let's get back to the presidential election. If you're an independent and you go for this election and you don't get a quarter of the vote, you don't get the 250,000 of taxpayers' money. If you're an independent, you don't qualify for the 5.1 million in 2020.
The criteria are too tight.
No, but the taxpayers' money is being manipulated by the political parties already to their own benefit.
But even the bar is set in such a way that it's quite discriminatory. You know how you actually even get on the ballot paper. Listen,
before TDs actually go out to stand an election, they're already given money by the taxpayer to fight the election, while an independent person that wants to challenge them has to cough up themselves. The whole system is stacked against anybody that would be an alternative voice.
Dr. Joe Kelly, thank you so much for joining us, because they've switched the heating off or opened the door. I can't sit here any longer. I don't know which one it is. Dr. Kelly, thanks so much. We'll chat to you. Paddy Rooney, thanks so much for joining us. It's been wonderful having your views. And John McAteer, always a pleasure. Look forward to your take on this on on Thursday. Thanks so much for Wednesday night.
Thanks.
Thanks very much for
thank you very
joining
much.
us. And we leave you, I suppose, to congratulate Catherine Connolly. She's going to be the new President of Ireland, the 10th President. 75% of you, or thereabouts, who voted for her. If you take out the spoiled votes, why would you? It's in excess of 80%. She is going to be the new President. It's a landslide right across the country. We've tried to sort of dig into it a little bit as to what this might mean locally, politically, going forward. We'll continue all this conversation, of course, on Tuesday. Tomorrow, myself, Caroline and Shannon from the 9 till noon show are climbing Errigal Mountain. It's to help raise funds and to heighten, raise awareness for the provision of a defib around about halfway up the mountain too. So stick around on the social medias tomorrow and get involved in that too. But for me, Greg Hughes, Joe, Paddy, John and Michaela Clark, by the way, who's had a pivotal role with us in terms of setting it up with the start of the programme, but also helping us out throughout the show. We really appreciate her. And of course, last but certainly not least, the ever-present Caroline Orr. But so from all of us, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Enjoy your public holiday Monday. Don't forget to put the clocks black. Put the... that was a real spoonerism, wasn't it? I'll try that once more. Put the clocks back. All right, chat to you soon, everybody. Bye-bye.